Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a 9-digit number that is, frankly, a huge deal for millions of people in the U.S. tax system. It's called the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. And as you're about to see, it's way more than just a number. So here's our game plan. We'll start with what an ITIN actually is and why it even exists. Then we'll get into the big question, who can get one? We'll walk through the whole application process, look at how these things are used in the real world, well beyond taxes, and then wrap up with the risks and rewards. All right, let's kick things off with the fundamental problem that the ITIN was created to solve way back in 1996. This is really the core of the issue, right? You've got a law that says if you earn wages in the US, you've got to pay federal taxes. Doesn't matter what your immigration status is. But what if you don't have a social security number? How are you supposed to follow that law? Well, the answer is the ITIN. It's a 9-digit number, just like a social security number, but here's the dead giveaway. It always starts with the number 9. This was the IRS's solution, a dedicated pathway for people to file their taxes when an SSN just isn't in the cards. Now, this is the key thing to remember. Its original purpose. The ITIN was created for one reason and one reason only, to help the IRS process tax returns. That's it. It's a tool for tax administration, pure and simple. And this slide just lays it out so clearly. An ITIN is for filing your taxes, period. What it is not for is work authorization. It does not make you eligible for Social Security, and it absolutely does not change your immigration status. This is probably the biggest misconception out there, so it's a super important point. So we know what it's for, but now for the big question, who can actually get one? Let's break down who is eligible to apply. First off, let's just get a sense of this scale here. By the end of 2022, there were 5.8 million active ITINs. That is a huge number of people using this specific channel to be part of the U.S. tax system. So, who are these nearly 6 million people? Well, you might be surprised at how diverse the group is. Yeah, it includes undocumented workers, but it also includes a whole lot of people who are here legally, like some students on visas, spouses of people on work visas, and even foreign investors who have income in the U.S. It's a way broader group than most people think. Okay, so let's say you're in one of those groups and you need an ITN. What's next? Let's walk through what the actual application process looks like. It really comes down to these 3 main steps. First, you fill out a Form W-7, and this is a big deal. You have to attach it to a completed federal tax return. That's a rule they put in place back in 2003. Second, you have to provide documents that prove who you are and that you have foreign status. And third, you send it all in, either by mail or in person. And this is it. This is the form where it all starts. The Form W-7. It asks for your basic information and makes you state exactly why you need an ITIN in the first place. Now for that second step, the paperwork. The IRS is super specific about what they'll accept to prove both your identity and your foreign status. And here's the pro tip. A valid passport is kind of the golden ticket here, because it's the only single document that checks both boxes. If you don't have one, you're going to need to send in at least 2 different documents from this list. And you're going to need some patience because this isn't a quick process. You're looking at about 9 to 11 weeks just to get the ITIN. And if you mailed in your original documents, which, can be pretty nerve-wracking, the IRS says you should get them back within 14 weeks. If you don't, they do have a dedicated phone line you can call. So while the ITIN's official job is for filing taxes, its use in the real world has just exploded. Let's look at what having an ITIN actually means for people day to day, because it's a game changer. This quote from Ernesto, a house painter, it just perfectly captures the motivation for so many people. It's not just about following the law. It's about building a record, a paper trail to prove that you've been here contributing to the economy. And there's this hope that maybe, just maybe, that record will help down the line.
And you know what? That paper trail has become a key that unlocks a lot of doors. More and more, an ITIN is being used instead of a social security number to get access to financial services. We're talking opening a bank account, getting a car loan, building a credit history, even getting a mortgage from some places. And this isn't just happening by chance anymore. Financial institutions, especially credit unions, are really starting to see this population and are actually creating specific loan programs just for people with ITINs. The market is definitely catching up to the reality on the ground.
But of course, it's not all straightforward. This expanded use also brings up some real questions and concerns. So let's zoom out and look at the full picture, including the debate that's always swirling around this program. And this is probably the biggest question on anyone's mind, especially if they're undocumented. You're sending all your personal information to a federal agency, the IRS. Is that safe? Are you putting yourself at risk? Well, the official answer, the one on the books, is all about the tax code. Section 6103 gives taxpayers really strong privacy protections. It generally stops the IRS from sharing your info with other federal agencies for things like immigration enforcement. Now, that word generally is important. There are exceptions, like for a criminal investigation ordered by a court, but the basic rule is confidentiality. And this leads us right into the wider public debate. On one side, you have folks who see the ITIN as just a pragmatic tool. It lets people who are already here and working pay their fair share of taxes and be part of the economy. On the other side, you have critics who worry that the program basically normalizes unauthorized work and could be a way to get around immigration laws. And that brings us to this story about Alicia, which is wow. She went through this whole process, filed her taxes, and then found out she actually owed the government money. But instead of just dropping it, she said she would pay. Her reason? That's what citizens do. It just speaks volumes about the desire to participate, to be part of the civic fabric of the country. So we're left with this really interesting question. The ITIN started out as a simple, bureaucratic tool just to collect taxes. But over the years, it's morphed into this key that unlocks financial services and creates a formal economic identity for millions. So what does that evolution tell us about the realities of work and immigration in America today? It's a lot to think about.